And we're live here on YouTube, the Off the Mic Wrestling Show. Thanks for tuning in this post AEW Dynamite edition. An eventful show, ladies and gentlemen. It was, I'm not going to call it the great episode of Dynamite that so many people are going to be talking about because there were some problems here. There were certainly some problems. But a lot of the stuff on this show advanced stories and made sense, which I liked. And specifically the main event angle, which, initially when I saw that Bryan Danielson and Hangman Page was not going to be the main event of the show, I was a little bit surprised because I thought there was a ton of story going into that. There was a lot of drama surrounding who's going to win the men's Owen and the women's Owen. Frankly, Mariah May was going to win. Like, we knew what was going to happen there. Like, this was not a surprise. Willow Nightingale was not winning 2 years in a row. It just wasn't happening. Plus, she's got an existing story with Chris Statlander. She's got nothing going on with Toni Storm. So why? Literally, this whole thing was telegraphed. So it's not to knock the women. I think the women worked really hard. And also, the men got a ton of time, even if there was an overrun. The first part of the show took up, like, along with the Swerve Strickland promo that followed it, was like 40 minutes. So, but all in all, this was a really good show. And specifically, the closing angle really is what's going to get the people talking because we all got swerved. no pun intended. We got Tony swerved when he drove. I gotta hand it to Tony Khan here. This story with Mariah May and Toni Storm has been one of the best bits of storytelling in any division. I really have to hand it to them here because, it's had some sexual undertones with the lesbian angle with Mina Shirakawa and her coming in from Japan to sort of help out. So that element, you had some drama with Mariah getting hit in the head with the champagne bottle in the build up to her match. And then she was miraculously okay, which was whatever. But there was a lot of good build in the story and getting you invested in these characters, which is one of my biggest complaints about AEW. We have grown to really care about Toni Storm. And they tried for so long to make her a heel, and she was just so damn lovable and so good and so involved in her character that we just can't turn her baby face. And all along, we all thought this was going to set up where Toni Storm was going to turn heel. And let's run through basically the sequence of events that happened. So, I thought that Statlander and Stokely were actually going to cost Willow in this match. And they did. It led to a near fall, but there was more stuff that happened in this. And Mariah got a couple of near falls near the end. Willow actually hit, the finish was Willow hits a cannonball, goes for a fireman's carry, and then it's like basically a reverse head scissors by Mariah into a pinning combination, gets the 1, 2, 3. She gets congratulations, gets a show of respect from Willow. You think she's the baby face. They go up the ramp, go up to the setup where the Owen Cup and then the commemorative belt. Mariah gets the belt, turns around, and decks Toni Storm in the head. Toni does a blade job. When's the last time you've seen a woman bust herself open like that? It was an insane visual. Mariah is actually putting her blood on her face and like kicking Luther in the balls and throwing him off the stage through a table. This was a fantastic angle. And really a storyline. And I think the reason why it landed so well is because nobody saw this coming whatsoever. You be honest with me. Did you really think that Tony Khan was going to have the stones to turn Toni Storm heel or to turn Toni Storm babyface and have Mariah May go into London at Wembley Stadium in her home country as a hated heel? That takes some stones to pull that off. Mariah's still going to get cheered, but I think that this landed. It was a really good swerve because you're really invested in all these characters. You didn't know which way it was going to go. And like I said, I don't often give credit to Tony Khan because there were some problems throughout this show, but this one knocked it out of the park. Well done. I'm going to make a proposal here and then we can just get to the show here and, run through all these matches. It was, like I said, mixed bag. Here's what I think should happen. Mariah May, Toni Storm at Wembley Stadium. Mariah May should win, and Jamie Hayter's music should hit. And Jamie Hayter comes back to a thunderous pop in her home country. You get two London girls feuding over two London or English-born wrestlers vying for the Women's World Championship, a championship that basically Jamie Hayter, you can argue, really like fought valiantly, and they could have just taken it off her rather than having a visual pin. Also, you could also have Toni Storm win in this scenario and have Jamie Hayter come back as well. Either way, I think this is a really good opportunity to bring Jamie Hayter back if she is healthy. So, but yeah, like weaving and like I said, swerving. I give Tony Khan a ton of credit for that closing angle with Mariah May and Toni Storm, because you just don't see that type of stuff. And like I said, you haven't seen like a storyline to that level with that much investment. Do that more often. That's all I said. That's all I gotta say. So, so let's go through this show. Also later on, big day for women's wrestling. As a huge signing for WWE. You might recognize her, and the timing of this. I'm wondering what the hell Tony Khan's doing. Even if he had this great angle that paid off tonight, there, like I said, there's some problems in AEW that still need to be addressed. Okay, so show starts. MJF's got his video package hyping up what he said on Collision, all the stuff out there. Neat thing that I noticed coming out of that. It starts with little Ospreay. You pan to the ringside area. No LED boards. They don't look like WWE. They go to the old barricades with the old AEW banners. Felt old school. So that was neat. So then Will Ospreay comes out. He cuts his promo, basically saying that he's appalled but not surprised. Said he basically had heard that MJF was like one of the most insecure people, and he took exception to MJF, opening himself up about ADD, and he says, "Yeah, I have ADHD, and it doesn't give me an excuse to be a prick." Brings up the bidding war of 2024, and that it didn't work out for MJF, and that's why. Basically, Tony Khan would rather pay for talent like him to elevate it as opposed to MJF for burying it. Good line here. I've got more talent in my left nut than you do in your entire body, bruv. I gotta tell you, man, Will Ospreay, for not being much of a promo guy, he's naturally kind of molded himself into it. I mean, references MJF's tattoo, says the tattoo should really say all about yourself, not all elite wrestling, bet on yourself. And saying he had to clean up MJF's mess. He challenges MJF to a fight. Obviously, we're thinking this is going to set up for Wembley. MJF doesn't come out. He has a promo on the screen and pretty much goes more or less proposes MJF Will Ospreay next week, episode 250 of Dynamite. They agree. It's set up for next week. It is confirmed that it will kick off Dynamite. Okay, couple things here. This is good. Why are you doing MJF Ospreay next week? Why? Okay, so there's a couple things here. No matter what this is, if this is just the sake of, okay, we're gonna pop a rating and try to keep people in off of the Big Bang Theory lead-in. If that's the case, and this is just like a swerve and MJF's going to give him a different opponent or something as opposed to that, that's not going to cut it, because then it's just a ratings play. If you do it and you have a DQ finish that just leads into Wembley, you've just blown away one of your biggest money matches on free television when it could have been a first time ever match at Wembley Stadium. That's dumb. And then I'll talk about something later in the show that may be even more confused. But yeah, this was problematic because it's just like, you don't need like all ins in like 5-6 weeks. Why are you going to try and do this twice in the span of like 4 to 6 weeks? It doesn't make any sense to me, because it's your 250th episode and you're trying to put on the biggest show possible and trying to pop a rating. That's clearly what this is. There's no need to do this. It screams desperation is what it is. And that's new AEW. That's not old AEW. Like, you don't need to do this for the sake of doing this. And whatever it is, it's a bad idea. So, and then this was also pretty stupid too. So as Ospreay's leaving the ring, we see a flash graphic up in the corner hyping up that Bryan Danielson and Hangman's coming up in 90 seconds. Yeah, they had to put up a clock saying, "Hey, stay tuned. In 90 seconds, you're gonna get this." And then they air the hype package for Bryan Danielson against Hangman Page. Jeff Jarrett's at the top of the ramp being the special enforcer. Nigel McGuinness is on commentary for this match, which I thought was really interesting because a lot of people leading into this thinking that Hangman was going to win. And it was going to be because of Nigel McGuinness, because him and Bryan have a huge beef from their days in Ring of Honor. And it was going to set up for a Nigel return match. Nigel hasn't wrestled in like 10 years. So I was like, okay, maybe they're doing that just to kind of like, swerve us again. A lot of interesting spots. Like Hangman really was mauling Bryan early on in this match. There was a sleeper swing that happened. Danielson was getting worked on his neck a lot. Bryan busted out the hits in this thing, man. Like this was an inspiring performance from Bryan Danielson. And like, he was busted open at one point in this match. Like, I mean, he went into an exposed turnbuckle. There was, he does a spider German suplex in the ropes where he uses the core strength and German suplex Hangman off the rope, goes for a crossface. Hangman counters the diving headbutt into a cross break. Danielson breaks it on the ropes. Then another really cool spot. Hangman goes for a moonsault after he hits Bryan's head on the exposed turnbuckle, and then he turns it into a tombstone pile driver. That only gets two. Hangman goes for another moonsault, and then that misses, and Hangman lands on the apron. As I say to my sister all the time, that's the hardest part of the ring. It was a gnarly looking, but Bryan Danielson then proceeds to hit a springboard off the top rope tope. I haven't seen him bust out that, maybe even in his WWE days. That was insane. Then Hangman hits another pile driver on the floor. Jeff Jarrett and the doctor have to check on him. Hangman gets disrespectful with Jeff Jarrett, who he spit on in his entrance. So Danielson then beats the count, resisting medical attention and saying, hey, you don't have to do this. Bryan counters a clothesline into a Busaiku knee. No count there. Hangman and Danielson both counter their German suplexes by landing on their feet. Danielson then goes for another Busaiku knee, hits referee Paul Turner. Hangman then goes to use his belt, which he's been using in all of his matches, and gets confronted by Jeff Jarrett, who, being the noble babyface, standing up for his hero or his friend Owen Hart. And so he gets shoved down. And Jeff Jarrett, in the process of that, also reveals, hey, he's the ref now. And then there's a roll up. We get two. Hangman then hits a dead eye for two. There's a buckshot to the back and then a buckshot to the front. And then we get a roll up, and that's a 2 count. And then Hangman goes for another crossface. He's in it and Bryan is in it for a really long time as it does the spot where he's about to pass out. Hand drops, it's up. And out of this, after he's trying to fight out, he rolls up Hangman and gets the 3. And Bryan Danielson wins the Owen Hart tournament, wins the Owen Cup, and is going to Wembley Stadium to face Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship. This was Hangman and Bryan are freaking fantastic, and they have just elite chemistry. So I'm not surprised that this delivered. Fine with it leading off, especially with how the show ended. Great way to set the tone for the show. So it's Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland, two Washington State boys, going to main event Wembley Stadium. Bryan Danielson going for the world championship again. He hasn't gone for it since he hasn't gone for the world title outside of an interim try. He tried against Hangman early on. He tried against MJF recently. And then he also tried against Jon Moxley in 2022. But yeah, he hasn't challenged for it since the MJF match, which was over a year ago. So hard to believe that Bryan Danielson's been out of the picture. But Swerve, this is going to be a big time test. And Swerve mentioned in his promo following this, he came out. We come back from break. He says it's going to be an honor to face him, holds a grudge against him for beating him once. Says Bryan's on the downside. I've become the most dangerous man in AEW. And then a couple other bullet points from this that became significant. Swerve talks about the EVPs trying to get him to be on Team Elite for Blood and Guts in a couple of weeks, and says he's going to join AEW. Team AEW is the team captain. And he's just hammers home a couple of good points saying, I'm going to do things you couldn't do, Bryan, beat Will Ospreay and beat the Elite by leading Team AEW. So a couple shots here. Interesting way to build this match between two really great wrestlers. And then he challenges Okada to a match that gets made official for next week. So two big matches, a champion versus champion match with Swerve Strickland versus Kazuchika Okada leading into the blood and guts match, and obviously MJF Will Ospreay. So they're stacking the show next week. So I get it. I just don't think you needed to expense one of your biggest money matches to do that. I understand Okada, and they'll probably do some screwy finish because, I mean, I don't think Okada's lost in a singles match since he got to AEW. He's been pretty well protected, and Swerve Strickland's the world champion, so I don't know how they're going to do that match. And then the last line of this promo, which was really good, says this is going to be Bryan's final countdown, which is owed to the famed music of Bryan. And I hope that Bryan in Wembley Stadium comes out to Final Countdown. That would be a nice pull by Tony Khan, and I think he would do it. So then we come out of break. Acclaimed has a music video called Two Times. They basically, really the thing that I liked about this is it kind of alluded to the fact that the Bucks have kind of, become frauds and turned into things that they hate. There was a simulated peeing image in this thing that I could have done without, but it was fine. Then we get to Samoa Joe versus Chris Jericho in a Stampede Street fight. I didn't know why we needed to see this, but you know what? It was fine. It was a lot of hardcore match spots. Joe hits a dive onto Brian Keith, and then Jericho actually just botched a drop kick, which it's funny considering Jericho still says he can have the best match of the night. He didn't have the best match tonight. Then Joe did his famed nope spot where Jericho tries to run into him, and he runs headfirst into the steps. Near the end of the match, Jericho throws coffee in the face of Joe to get the upper hand. Joe then counters a Judas effect into the Coquina clutch, but Big Bill, very cliche. He wasn't out there. He was hidden in a room and clubs Joe in a chair. The three members of the Learning Tree then beat up on Joe. Joe gets choke slammed onto a pallet, onto a forklift, and then Jericho gets in the forklift and proceeds to drive Samoa Joe through a wall. The doctor stops the match. We got to see Colt Cabana in this segment, which was interesting. Joe ends up leaving in an ambulance after this segment. So like really this felt too WWE for me. Like I understand like, okay, this tagline for AEW is where the best wrestle. This felt very sports entertainment to me. So again, it's these mixed messages from AEW. What are you trying to be? Are you trying to be what you used to be? Or are you trying to be more like WWE? This is the problem that I've had with this company. And I'm saying it's fine. I enjoyed it, but it's like, it's this problem that I've had with AEW is like their identity is really mixed up. And I think that's why this product has gone really cold, and they're not able to sell out 25% of a building in Canada. Like it's not there. Another case in point, a random match that was like, it was built as like a global 4-way or whatever. And then they randomly announced right before the match, oh yeah, by the way, winner of this gets an international championship match. And I'm like, wait, what? You mean the same title that Will Ospreay holds and is defending against MJF next week? What? So how are we going to get here? A couple of things that I liked out of this. There was a double submission spot on Kyle Fletcher by Claudio and Pac. Claudio had the sharpshooter in Canada, appropriate in Heart Country, and Pac had the brutalizer in. So Kyle Fletcher took a lot of crap in this, but Tomohiro Ishii, like it's Claudio, Kyle Fletcher, Tomohiro Ishii, and Pac in this match. And so there's the double submission that's broken up by Ishii. Fletcher then kicks out of a big lariat by Ishii at the very last second. There's a neutralizer on Kyle Fletcher. And then both Claudio and Pac try to go for a pin that each of them individually break up. And then Fletcher gets a spot in where he almost wins off a roll-up. But then Pac hits the Black Arrow and follows it up with the brutalizer. Nobody's able to break up the pin. He gets the win. And Pac is going to get the next international championship match after whatever happens with MJF and Ospreay next week. So that's interesting. And Pac made note that he wasn't at Wembley last year. He missed it due to injury. Talks about the struggles he's had since coming back, hypes it up, and says he's going to get his Wembley moment. That was good. But again, just a random match there. And then you announce before the match, oh, it's for an international championship match. Again, it's just these little things. Like, I was fine with a lot of things on the show, but there's some execution issues in terms of, like, how you're booking certain segments that I was like, okay, that's a little weird. Then we get to the back. Hangman Page walks backstage, pretty much walks right past Renee Paquette. And Renee just yells at him, basically saying, hey, show me some respect. And I was like, yeah, Renee, stand up for yourself. Great. Somewhere John Moxley's probably sitting saying, yeah, go Renee, go wife. So Hangman doesn't even really say anything to Renee. He knocks on the door. It's the Elite's office. Okada comes out and basically says, hey, can I help you? Bucks come out, basically say, hey, this is okay. And Hangman pretty much simply says he'll do it, which means he'll do blood and guts. He's the 5th member of Team Elite because he's so invested on trying to get revenge on Swerve Strickland. And that story ain't over. I don't know where Hangman's going to go for All In, but I could fully expect that whatever happens coming out of Wembley is going to lead into All Out, where I think something's going to happen, and we're going to get the next chapter of Swerve and Hangman at some point within the next couple of months. And I think that's fine. Then we get to the most pointless segment on this show, maybe one of the most pointless segments I have ever seen in wrestling. I'm not even exaggerating when I say it. Mercedes Moné's toast. She wants to do another celebration. I understand it's getting some heat. There's extra security out there to stop interruptions. So she wants to set the record straight about the past, present, and future. She says, I'm the best there was, the best there is, and the best there ever will be. So she botches the famed Bret Hart line. I don't know if that was by design or not. Either way, it wasn't good. And then Britt just comes out, interrupts, kicks a couple security guards in the face, and then just walks by about 4 of them, who are the worst security guards I've ever seen in my life. And Mercedes just runs away, and that's the segment. Did we really need that? Last week was so good between these two. Did you really need to do this on television to build to a match that you're going to have in 5-6 weeks? No, you didn't need to have this on television. It was, and also, I've got to say this, the booking of Mercedes Moné, it's been debated on if she has really creative control and if she's really like the female Hulk Hogan and brother or sister. I'm controlling this. I'm not going to do that or whatever. I don't know if that's the case or if Tony Khan's doing a lot of this. She has been booked terribly. Even stop putting a microphone in front of her. She's not good on the mic. Less is more. This didn't need to happen. This was a pointless segment. It made no sense and did not advance any bit of television. It was a waste of time. Really, just a colossal waste of time. So I think that this feud will be fine, but more segments like last week and less like this week. This was terrible. Really, the worst part of the show, and maybe one of the worst segments I've seen on any wrestling show this year. I am being completely serious about that. This sucked. This absolutely freaking sucked. Okay. Then we come out of another commercial break. Darby Allin is attacking Brandon Cutler. He basically challenges the Elite to something at Dynamite 250. I don't know what that is. My guess is what's going to happen is we're going to get Darby Allin, the Acclaimed, Swerve Strickland, and Mark Briscoe against the Elite, along with Hangman Page, in the Blood and Guts match in 2 weeks. And I've got to tell you, this is the worst booked. This is the worst field of 10 men that you can have in a Blood and Guts match. I'm not saying individually these guys are fine, but stacking these guys together, I love Darby Allin. He's a crazy MFer. He's perfect for this match. Mark Briscoe. But this feels thrown together. It feels forced. It feels like, and you know those Hell in a Cell pay-per-views that they used to have, and they would just have a Hell in a Cell match for the sake of it, even if there was no build to it? That's what this is like. It's like, okay, you're just having a match because it's a tradition for you, and you're just throwing a bunch of guys in there in a storyline that I've said sucks beyond belief because nobody cares about the Young Bucks. They're not intimidating authority figures. The best part of that gimmick is Okada, who's funny, and he's a comedy character. And he's supposed to be one of the best wrestlers in the world. So him being a comedy character and being the best thing in this is a problem. So Yeah, I'm not a fan of this blood and guts setup. It'll probably be fine. It's going to be a crazy match with a bunch of crazy spots. Darby being in there. I mean, Swerve's going to be in there. They'll probably use it as a way. Maybe Bryan Danielson is in this. I have no idea. But either way, this feels just completely and utterly forced and just kind of utter nonsense. And then, like I said, main event. As I said, there was a lot of good stuff in this match. I mean, coming out of break with Mariah May and Willow Nightingale out of the first, they go from a picture-in-picture break to a DDT from Mariah May for a 2 count. Then Mariah hits a German suplex on Willow, which is very impressive. And then there's a corner uppercut. Mariah hits the Stratusfaction. God, Trish Stratus has been getting a lot of love in the last 5 or so days. Duke Hudson does her move. Trish is at Money in the Bank. Then you get the Stratusfaction for Mariah on this show. Mariah counters the pounce from Willow with a nasty looking headbutt. And then you get the run in from Stokely with the hood. Tony distracts the ref, and Chris Statlander gets a kick in. Mariah hits her knee strike for a 2 count. Mariah goes for a roll up like she did against Hikaru Shida recently. That gets a 2. Willow gets a big clothesline in. That's a 2 count. Willow with a cannonball. And then, like I said, a very nifty head scissors finish out of the fireman's carry position for the win. Mariah May is your women's Owen Hart tournament winner. And she celebrates with Toni Storm. It's a great moment. I'm like sitting on my seat expecting that Toni Storm is going to somehow turn heel here. And Mariah May takes the belt off of the trophy up at the top of the stage and just decks Toni Storm. Toni does a blade job. Mariah is just wailing on her with the belt, taking some of her blood and wiping on her, even kissing and licking it. Like this was some graphic stuff. I mean, Luther takes a table bump. This was great, again, because everybody was expecting Toni Storm to be the one to turn. But when you think about this whole feud and the way it was set up, it seemed like it was tailor-made for Mariah May to be the conquering babyface going into Wembley Stadium. By doing this storyline makes way more sense. Because, okay, Toni Storm's using Mariah May. Why? For a glory bit and just to humble her? That doesn't make any sense. Mariah May, to establish her as a character and even a more despicable heel, for her to be the one manipulating Toni Storm, saying, hey, I've been your biggest fan the whole time, only for the minute that she gets the biggest opportunity of her career in her home country, does she deck Toni Storm, who's the biggest babyface in the women's division and everybody loves. Because it was going to be hard to turn Toni Storm babyface or not turn her heel again, because like she was trying to be a heel for so long and the fans wouldn't boo her. Like they were booing Serena Deeb when Serena Deeb was having like these heartfelt conversations about things in her life. The fans were booing her. So I got to give Tony Khan, I don't know if this was the direction of the story at the whole time or this was a last minute call. Great bit of booking by Tony Khan all the way through. I give him a ton of credit. Nobody saw this coming. And all in all, I think from a storyline perspective, it makes a ton of sense for Mariah May to be the one to turn. Even if it's going to be in her home country, fans will still cheer her. And like I said, there's a great element of surprise potentially at Wembley, no matter who wins this match. And it might be Mariah. I think it would be a good idea for Mariah to win. Tony's had a long run with the championship. It would be a good crowning moment. And then you have Jamie Hayter, after over a year out, come out and confront Mariah May. And 2 girls from England are in the center of the ring in one of the biggest women's feuds. And then you got Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné and another one in Chris Statlander. The women's division is doing really well in AEW. But that's a great segue, because last thing I want to talk about here, some massive news in the world of women's professional wrestling, as not even 2 weeks after being on an AEW show, Stephanie Vaquer, who outshined Mercedes Moné and won over fans, is going to WWE. This came together so quickly. Clearly it was in the works for a while, because CMLL, like a couple days ago, CMLL said there was reports that oh, Stephanie still had a lot of time on her contract, but she could get out of it. And then she would just have to drop all the titles. So they announced this morning that they had stripped her of all her championships. And this seemed like a direct sign, because normally when you're with WWE, you can't really go perform elsewhere unless, of course, it's TNA apparently. So, but yeah, this is a shocking development, because I was on here not too long ago saying I thought Stephanie Vaquer would go to AEW. It just made a lot of sense. And I didn't know how it was going to work out potentially in a WWE, but I didn't account for Julia also being a big time signing, going to NXT at some point. And what the reports are saying is that Stephanie Vaquer wants to live the American life and experience that. And like, this girl's a star. Some people are likening her to a Chilean version of Rhea Ripley. And I mean, she doesn't speak any English, so that'll be a hurdle to overcome, but that's been conquered in WWE. I think that this is a massive, massive miss for Tony Khan optically. And he got some of the goodwill back with what happened with Mariah May at the end of this show tonight. But this is a massive, massive misfire from AEW to not lock up Stephanie Vaquer, specifically when it hasn't even been 2 weeks when she was on your show and she outshined one of your top talents, one of your big time signings that you paid a whole bunch of money for. And apparently I thought the goal of that match between Mercedes and Stephanie was to get Stephanie more over. But hey, she got over in an AEW ring, and now she's signing with your direct competitor. Tell me how that makes any sense. So I have no idea what happened here. We don't know the circumstances of this, but Stephanie's going to NXT. It's the most loaded women's division in all of professional wrestling. You can argue with me about AEW. There is a bevy of versatility and just different types of talent, different age groups, whatever, that can feed into the main roster. It is so fertile in WWE. And adding Stephanie along with Julia and possibly Jordan Grace in 2025, holy crap, Shawn Michaels is cooking in NXT. Like, I don't know what Tony Khan's goal was if he knew he wasn't going to sign her. Why would you book that match at Forbidden Door? If either he was completely blindsided or he's completely stupid. You've got to walk into that match, and even 12 days later, it's done. It either tells me that WWE had this locked up pretty quickly after the fact, or they just swooped in and Tony Khan was caught sleeping at the wheel. And this is a guy who hypes up all the money that he has. You couldn't have afforded to, pay a talent who outshined maybe one of your prized possessions. It's not a good look. It really is not a good look for AEW that this happened, specifically in such close proximity to what happened in at Forbidden Door. Like, it's not good. So, but like I said, all in all, a good enough night for AEW. This was a solid episode of Dynamite. We'll have to see what happens Friday on SmackDown. Not really sure where they're going to go. They got a lot of convincing for us to do with Solo Sikoa, specifically with his character arc potentially going into the match against Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. Because really, the selling point of SummerSlam at this point is that Roman Reigns is coming back. Like, that's it. Because Cody Rhodes Solo Sikoa is the main event of a pay-per-view. I would rather see Jacob Fatu. I'm sorry. They're going with Solo, and I understand it, but I'll let it play out, as they say. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Really appreciate it. This is a good night. Follow the show on YouTube at OT Mike Wrestling here on this channel. Like, share, subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. I'll love you forever. I appreciate it. OT Mike Wrestling on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Whatever. And also Off the Mic 28 is my personal Twitter account. If you want to yell at me, tell me I'm an idiot. I get AEW stands in my mentions all the time telling me that I suck, or I'm a shill, or I get paid for my check mark. Really, I just love the engagement. Just please be nice. Be nice. Like, I try to be nice, but I also try to be critical and also try to be fair. So just trying to grow the community, y'all. But thank you. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye.